Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journeys, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2023. And specifically, I'd like to focus on a really wonderful, splendid set which was released by the Criterion Collection earlier this year. It has a number of films in this collector's set, and the set is given spine number 1194, and it is right here, which is Tod Browning's Sideshow Shockers. And as the title of this set suggests, these are films from the filmmaker Tod Browning. And today I'd like to focus on one such film, again contained within this really splendid set. It is a film which is described as being from the year 1925, and the filmmaker is indeed Tod Browning. And the name of the work is The Mystic. This is the work which is described as being from the year 1925, and it is from the filmmaker Tod Browning, directed by Tod Browning, and the story is credited to Tod Browning, with the scenario credited to Waldemar Young, and costumes by Erte and others on the crew. And with regard to the very compelling cast, we have Eileen Pringle and Conway Turrell and others. And I'm speaking of this work, once again, from 1925, a silent work, and it's a real marvel to have it included here as part of this Criterion Collection Blu-ray release in 2023. It really is a very rare find indeed, but now made available for hopefully as many people to see as possible. It is this work, which is The Mystic. And The Mystic is a very curious and quite intriguing work that I think has a lot of through lines or possibilities of connections with many other Tod Browning works, not least of which, of course, being those works which are included elsewhere in this set, Tod Browning's Sideshow Shockers. And the phrase sideshow in that, I think, is very apropos, because we begin, if we were to focus on the plot or story structure of The Mystic, we focus on a carnival with the backdrop, a Hungarian carnival backdrop that opens the film. And amongst the people that we meet is one of the main characters. This is Zara, and this is the Eileen Pringle character. And we understand that she is involved in this type of fortune-telling activity or attraction in this carnival atmosphere. And this also forms an interesting backdrop or introduction in that we see the carnival atmosphere, we see the interaction with the guests and the visitors, and we also see the backstage, maybe establishments or implications of ties and familial nature, which sets up a kind of soap opera or melodrama aspect, which will carry the proceedings all the way through the film in terms of maybe love interests and possibilities and jealousies that might emerge later, love triangles, etc. But in any event, this is a really wonderful way to introduce the film and the circus, sideshow attraction, carnival atmosphere that is the forefront, that also has behind the curtain this idea of the human drama and relationships that will unfold as we watch the film. And this idea of what is shown and what is behind the curtain is also, I think, very apropos, because as the film progresses, we do see the ways in which the spiritual and the supernatural world and the interests in the occult by visitors and guests really laid the foundation for the interest in the sideshow attraction. But we are also privy, as viewers of the film, to the mechanics of things happening, how the tricks are designed, well, if we go into the latter half of the film, how the con is engendered. Because what we have here is also somewhat early on in the film, we also are introduced to the character of Nash. And Nash is bringing along with him the possibility of great financial success for Zara and company. But what this financial success is, or the opportunities for which, are laid before them and before us in this form of creating these cons. Con artists or con artist gang, which will try to use the fortune telling seance aspect and take advantage of wealthy people's interest in the supernatural and the occult to try to essentially rob them of their fortunes, their financial fortunes. And so this lays the groundwork for this furtherance of the con or the trick or the performance, now being the fortune-telling seance aspect with links to the supernatural, which have these really wonderful setups in the film, by the way, a real eerie and macabre atmosphere that's set up. But also behind the screen, we're also privy to the fact that these are mechanically designed, and also designed for the purpose or motivation of tricking someone. And we do see the subjects of their trickery or their attempted trickery in terms of the wealthy socialites that they encounter in the and their attempts to try to separate them from their money. Where here we have also the furtherance of a type of melodrama or human drama or soap opera aspect, which is done really, really well in a very entertaining way, focusing on Zara and Nash, but also this idea of turning tables or turning the tide, or feelings of guilt or remorse that might lead one to of the characters or more of the characters to change their allegiances or change their views, or perhaps develop feelings for others. And here we have this wonderful setup of potential love triangles that is also connected with the morality tale of the con artist gang, and also the idea of the trick or the con or the seance or the show with the design behind the curtain, behind the veil. And these, I think, come to a head when various interests and factions develop in terms of jealousy and crime and treachery, and who will win out at the end. It's one of those fascinating crime thriller, supernatural laced occult films that has a circus carnival sideshow capacity as well. So this is very much, if we were to consider or reconsider or recall a lot of the other Tod Browning aspects and say the other films that are included in the Sideshow Shockers, excuse me, I think we can agree that the film The Mystic, it really falls into those categories very comfortably, like a well-fitted glove. And in that way, it forms a great double or triple feature when combined with the other films included in this set. It's a wonderful, marvelous find, and according to lore and according to some of the supplemental materials, which we'll talk about momentarily, this was a very rare, very difficult to see film. And indeed, for me personally, it is my first time to watch this film by Tod Browning, The Mystic, upon the occasion of this Criterion release. And I was really fascinated and in awe of this. I liked how it looked and sounded. There was a real lovely ambiance and atmosphere that is really quite enveloping and quite charged. And the set pieces, the sort of quote unquote occult, in the occult or supernatural or spiritual set pieces, are really very effective. And there's a kind of grandness to the plot, a large sweep, and it moves from geographical location to geographical location. It's done very well, but also the characters are really well delineated and well drawn out, and there are moments of hints or peaks of morality or senses of wrongdoing in the course of this criminal endeavor or endeavors. And so I like those moments of character development and shine through, which I think is one of the great hallmarks of Tod Browning's works. You know, we have the spectacle and we have the sideshow spectacle, which could be said to be very much exhibitionist or perhaps even exploitative on the one hand. In this case, it could be said to be that in the sense that behind the curtain, the plot is to try to steal money. But in terms of the characters of the film, but what we also have in the world of Tod Browning, the mystic being a great example of this, we also have the way in which character motivations, the emotions, the ebbs and flows of the human heart, I think, are also on display, and I think it's shown very well, and the wonderful performances all around. I must mention Eileen Pringle, and Eileen Pringle is, of course, the central focus and one of the primary characters of this work. And it's great to see the type of style and the performance and the physicality of the role that she shows in terms of the exhibitionist showcasing style on the one hand, and then the turns of morality on the other. I think it's quite a great ensemble cast indeed, supported very well by what the Criterion Collection has to offer in terms of the musical score that they add on, and we'll talk a little bit about that later when we talk about the supplemental sections, etc. This is a marvelous find. This is a great discovery for anyone, again, who may be new to Tod Browning's work, or indeed who know Tod Browning's work but never had the chance to watch this up to now very, very hard to find, very hard to watch film, The Mystic. Well, now is your chance, and when you watch it, maybe you will see or identify certain aspects that are very much in the vein of the Tod Browning aesthetic, if one can call it that, which I think is very apropos, especially in the context of this set, because there are many similarities that one can find from The Mystic on the one hand and the other two films that are included in the set, which makes, I think, for really great companion piece watching, but also very compelling views that are very compelling melodramas with a supernatural edge to them. So a really splendid film indeed, great silent film work. This is the film The Mystic. The Criterion Collection has released the film The Mystic as part of this collector's set, this Blu-ray multi-disc set, Tod Browning's Sideshow Shockers. Once again, this set overall is given the spine number collectively at 1194. The Mystic can be found on one of the discs, and that disc has both the offerings of the film The Unknown and also The Mystic. And so when you put the disc in, which is what I have here in the player at the moment, you have your choice at the very outset of choosing one of those two films. And so for purposes of today, let me select The Mystic, and that'll bring you to the menu on the Blu-ray menu screen for The Mystic, and there are a number of points there in terms of the supplements, and we'll get to that. But before we do, let me turn to the great booklet, the staple booklet, which is a wonderful thing. We'll talk a bit more about the staple booklet and other aspects of this release overall in a future video, but for now I'd like to turn to page 36 of the booklet because it has notes about the restorations for these films, and among these notes there are comments about The Mystic. I quote, "The Mystic is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.33 to 1. This new digital master was created from a 35mm safety fine grain, which was scanned in 2K resolution on a Laser Graphics Director film scanner at Roundabout Entertainment in Burbank, California. Color was done by Michel Hasidim at Resilion in New York." So, The Mystic, once again, it is a great, rare work, a great discovery or rediscovery. And again, my experience with this film is next to nil up to this Criterion release. So I only can go by what I'm watching here. But what I see here, it's fine and it's pristine and it looks and sounds really great. And just considering its history, availability or lack thereof history over the course of these many, many years. To have it here in this type of condition, it's very pleasant to watch, and the way that the shadows and the emergence of characters and movement is registered, it's a really fine accomplishment. So I admit I have no point of reference in terms of my experience with this film prior to this release, because I say my experience has been next to nil, or nil indeed. But indeed, I'm very pleased with how this looks and sounds. It was in terms of the presentation, I found it to be a great window into enjoyment of watching this film, The Mystic. And then, if I were to now turn my attention to the supplements, as we went to the Blu-ray menu for The Mystic, we have the option of choosing the movie and then chapters, and then there's an introduction by David J. Scull. And this is an introduction which is approximately 9 minutes. And we have David Scull once again lending his great expertise into the world of Tod Browning, this time talking about the mystic over we hear his voice as we see photos and poster art and other memorabilia shots related to the mystic. And we hear his comments giving us a great background information. Again, it's 9 minutes, but what a great 9 minutes they are. First of all, he does remind us that this is an original story by Tod Browning, with the screenplay or scenario contributed by Waldemar Young. And the original story has say there's similarities with another Tod Browning work called The Unholy Three, and the idea of the con or the con artist's gang. And that's certainly the case with the film like The Mystic, which I refer to here as well. But there's also this idea of films in the 1920s that David Scull mentions about how there was a tendency or a trend to have films that were dealing with the supernatural or the occult, but also showing how they were done, how the tricks were had, rather than devoting the story truly into the realms of the supernatural. You'd have supernatural acts being performed, but then seeing how they were done. And that is a really great way, a blueprint type of explanation for films like The Mystic, because that's indeed what we have in terms of what is seen by the spectators in the film versus what we as viewers know or become privy to in terms of the mechanics of how they pulled it off. And so, but it also, it's good to be reminded, again, David Scull does a great job as per usual to remind us about many details, one of which being because of the way how this film is situated in the 1920s after the war. We have people, the public maybe expressing greater interests in the occult or the supernatural, talking to the dead, wanting to talk to loved ones who are no longer here due to one reason or another. And so this type of exploiting that type of yearning or need, I think, is very much apropos of the times, as David Scull mentions. So that's a great observation, and it's a reminder too of it, contextualizing the story, The Mystic, in the 1920s. And also speaking to about Tod Browning and Tod Browning's working relationships with members of the crew. There was also Eileen Pringle, the star of the film. And then also there's Erte, and there's a lot of discussion here in these 9 minutes about Erte and Erte's contribution in terms of art and costumes. And he also calls Tod Browning a sartorial dandy as well. So in terms of his penchant for hats and loud socks, etc. So, but speaking about Erte, there's an interesting way in which Erte, in terms of the fashion and costumes, designed certain costumes for Eileen Pringle to wear Zara on the one hand, but ultimately there seemed to have been a falling out between Erte and Tod Browning, which is a very interesting development, as described by David Scull here. And also, it's worthy to note that, as David Scull does, this is a great kind of there's some really great similarities between a work like The Mystic, or the story of The Mystic, and another work, the novel, the William Lindsay Gresham novel Nightmare Alley, as well as the film adaptation, or adaptations I should say, because I know there are more than one now. But there's an interesting parallel in terms of watching The Mystic and then watching or reading Nightmare Alley. So if you're interested in another type of double feature, or double bill, it might be interesting to watch The Mystic in Nightmare Alley as well. David's Call suggests that. So for these and other reasons, I think this introduction is really well done and well served. It makes me wish that there could have been a supplemental or an extra commentary track by David Scull here, but we don't get a supplemental. I'm sorry, we don't get a commentary track, but we do get this 9-minute introduction by David J. Scull, so that's really worth checking out. And then we have some notes about the score, and let me read. Presented with The Mystic is an original score recorded in 2023 by musician and composer Dean Hurley, a frequent collaborator of filmmaker David Lynch. The score is really quite remarkable. It has an eerie, ominous tone to it. It also has a way of mimicking certain effects to mimic sound effects in terms of the musical cues used to replicate sound effects. So when you, it's an interesting, wonderful audio device that's employed here. So well done for the implementation of that score. I thought it was really quite great indeed. And before I turn to some of the other aspects of this, let me just point out that once again, like the other films in this set, what we have is when you press the about the score, we have notes in a sub-menu here about the score. But when we press the button for introduction by David J. Scull, it just goes straight into the introduction. It doesn't give us any extra sub notes in the menu here. So that's another curious thing that we've spoken about with other of the films here as they're treated in this set. So for one reason or another, Criterion hasn't included all of the sub-menu explanations for each of the supplements like Criterion has done with pretty much most of their other releases. So I wonder why that is. It would have been, if other releases were anything to go by, when we press introduction by David Scull here, it would then take us to another little bit where it may give us some text about what that introduction is, when it was done, etc. But we don't get that. It goes straight into it. So that's just another interesting detail, a very minor point. It doesn't affect the overall viewing of this. Perhaps although it would have been nice because, again, it gives context to when this introduction was made, and we can assume it was done in 2023, given the release itself. But again, as the years pass, one forgets, or I certainly do, when a release was had. So maybe a couple years down the line, or even shorter, I might forget when this was done. So in my forgetfulness, for someone like me who is very forgetful, it's always nice to have a reference point and have those notes to accompany each of the supplements. But oh well, excuse me, c'est la vie, as they say. But I suppose we can also turn our attention very briefly to the booklet. There are certain aspects of the booklet that are mystic centric. So we have, as per usual, we have a section here that is devoted to the mystic, starting on page 14, going into page 15 with a quick description of the film, and also some technical information. 74 minutes, black and white, silent, 1.33 to 1 aspect ratio, 1925. And then we turn the page and we can see cast and credits and other information and more pictures. And then in the main essay, which is a comprehensive essay, there is a section that can be said to be devoted to the mystics. So there are certain writings that could be said to be mystic-centric here, like the way in which this booklet and the writings handle the other films. So they're really great write-ups indeed. But we'll talk more about the overall comprehensive essay and the booklet, as well as other aspects of the presentation and the packaging, etc., going forward. But and the cover art design, etc. But that is, in a nutshell, I would say, a discussion of the film The Mystic. Another curious work, another great find or rediscovery. It's wonderful to have it, them be able to include it as part of this release for all the world to see. For everyone to see, in terms of everyone is a spectator, everyone is a guest, a viewer to the wonderful goings-on, the occult seances, and the sideshow spectacle that is on display, and the human drama that's on display here in this work from 1925, which is The Mystic. All right, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies, such as The Mystic, such as other works by Tod Browning, such as other films in the Criterion collection, and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.